And we're live. Hi, everyone. Number one Marmaduke fan here. And today I'm joined by three independent comic book creators. This is kind of exciting because this is for a shared universe featuring properties created by three different people called the Mythoverse. So real quick, I'm joined. I'd like Brett McGowan to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Changeling and Urban Fairytale.
Okay, hey. But yeah, as Morm said, I'm Brett McGowan. I am the writer and creator behind Changeling and Urban Fairytale, which is the young adult title in this universe. The basic premise is it's the story of a teenage girl named Maeve Mackenzie. She lives out in Aberdeen, Washington. She's pretty much a social outcast. And then all of a sudden she finds out that she's a changeling. Now, what I think kind of separates mine from like the traditional folklore is that in the traditional folklore, a changeling is typically just a fey baby that's exchanged for a human one, without the parents' knowledge. The same kind of thing happens, but the difference is that changelings are more like fey human hybrids, right? So it kind of gives them like a dual sort of heritage. Though I think what kind of makes Maeve unique and something that I was surprised that people responded to very well was the fact that she grew up Christian. So then she sort of got a little bit of a kind of sort of pagan heritage, but she had an upbringing that are sort of odds at each other. And by the way, Carl's Amateur Hour was complimenting my new profile pic, and that is courtesy of everyone's favorite shit poster, Troy Torres.
Oh yeah, aka Mr. Marvel. He's been a guest here before.
Yup, this was he basically made a fake Instagram post. That honestly was one of two. That was honestly one of two pics that made my day. The other was one done by the Rags artist Luigi, who just did it was just a little team up with Maeve and Regina. It's very adorable. But yeah, getting back on track. But yeah, that's kind of more or less what Maeve's story is. She now has to sort of figure out how she sort of reconciles this heritage she now has with an upbringing she was brought with, and of course it comes with all the usual young adult stuff like trying to balance high school and supernatural things. It's a little bit Buffy, a little bit Sabrina, a whole lot of anime and manga that I grew up with when I was in high school. In fact, when I was making the book, I was sort of kind of going back to anime. I was really into when I was Maeve's age, more or less, and a lot of that was stuff like Bleach and Fooly Cooly. Been a very big influence on the book, in fact. And I even tapped my artist Victor Campon because he had that anime manga style that honestly really fit it. And
it also fits with kind of like the young adult vibe you want to go for, right? Yeah.
Yeah, not just that, and also like I was also very lucky to find my colorist Ginger Foxy, because she was able to sort of capture the mood and atmosphere I wanted for the book. Because I knew that this was going to be a book that was going to live and die by its aesthetics, and I had to have everything right.
When you had me on a guest on your channel, what kind of stood out to me is you had thought about the upbringing for your protagonist, and you combined it with this real interest in not just like Disney fairy tale stories, but kind of more ancient European myth and lore.
Oh yeah. It's like a lot of it Celtic, just because. That's just because, well, a lot of that comes back to my heritage. If it didn't my name didn't give it away already, I do have Irish in me, and so a lot of my heritage is Celtic, and I've always been interested in that kind of folklore. And what's very unique about Celtic mythology compared to others, like say Nordic or Greek and Greco-Roman, is that because the Celts never got around to developing a written language for themselves, that kind of means that there's not really an agreed upon version of it like there is with the Nordics and Greco-Roman world. So it's not as rigid. I actually have a lot more freedom to sort of put my own spin on it. Things are, and it's been very freeing for me because, like I said, I can pretty much do whatever I want with it, and it's more or less works.
And something interesting about this is all three of you will be having this shared universe together. So next, I'd like to give Matt Trin a chance to introduce himself. You've been a guest on this show before to talk about a completely different project. So Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about the previous project you've worked on, the McKinnon Chronicles, and tell us a little bit about your contribution to the Mythoverse.
All right. Well, previously I was on a show for McKinnon Chronicles, a sci-fi space opera kind of comic series, and right now it's been shelved because of how the Mythoverse has come together. It's such a rare. It's one of those rare moments where you realize this is going to be bigger than you expect it to be, so why not go ahead with it first? And and then carried away from Mythoverse to McKinnon Chronicles. And so, actually, I think it's kind of funny how you have the setup for this. Brett's is the newest project. Mine is in the middle, and Dan's, you could probably call her the old lady of the group.
Maybe that's kind of appropriate since I always thought of Dan whenever I saw you online, because your username was Molly Beans. I always thought of you as the character Molly Beans in my head.
Well,
that's a common problem.
Well, the Adobe Kroger predates Mythics by about several years. So,
yeah. So Matt, when I had you on, you gave me the strong impression you think a lot about your characters and kind of what your characters think about, what their background is like, what their flaws are. So that stuck out to me when you were talking about that project. Tell me about some of your thoughts for Mythics, and how are you adding, kind of like your creativity to that?
Well, I've always believed a big supporter of character stories. So the first thing I come up with is the character, and then the universe, or the world, rather. And with Mythics, in a way, the idea of a Sherlock Holmes type character in a world, where the supernatural also exists, seemed rather appealing to me.
Yeah.
And because there might be some issues with having a male character go through that, might as well just switch it up, make the character female, so that I don't run into the problem of people claiming I stole their idea.
Gotcha.
But,
make it a little more distinct from Sherlock Holmes, right?
Yep. And I was doing a lot of research into folklore and came up with the British cunning folk, where I don't know, I'm not exactly sure how trustworthy a lot of the information was, but another reason to push the character to be female was that when it came to certain aspects of the cunning folk, such as they were also at odds with witches, and so their witch hunters were predominantly female, as the men were often the storytellers, because during that time it was forbidden for women to have an education. So I thought about, well, what if I were to take that, put it in a modern time setting, and basically make a character story for a mystery type series that also has some respect for how the creatures in folklore work.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you have let's say, a Spriggan, which is pretty much my go-to description for how it's always the little things that you don't expect to be the thing that defeats the creature.
Mm-hmm.
But with a Spriggan, all you really need to do is turn your clothes inside out. That's all you have to do.
I think that's what I like most about Althea, is that she uses those silly little tricks rather than brute force or magic to overcome her foes.
Because you have this mythic universe with like a strong root in ancient folklore, you have some fun opportunities to use kind of characters and creatures which don't necessarily like follow the logic of like most modern television shows, right?
Exactly.
Oh man, that's kind of the thing with the Fae. All in all, it's just like they don't operate on logic that humans would understand. It's sort of a thing where it makes sense to them, but it doesn't to us.
I get you. And then third, I'd like to give Dan, the creator of Molly Beans. He's not the same person as Molly Beans. Dan, you're the creator of Adobe Kroger, who is going to be part of this shared universe. And you've actually published a novel for Adobe Kroger that people can read, people can listen to it on Audible. So tell us a little bit about how Adobe Kroger fits into the Mythiverse.
Okay, absolutely. Well, Adobe Kroger is set in a world in which Holy Emperor Charlemagne, his 12 peers were actual literal paladins in the D&D sense of the word. They could actually wield holy magic. They channeled the divine power of God and all of that. And they were formed as an order as a means to give humanity a counterattack against the constant depredations of chaotic magic. Initially, that was their purpose, but over the course of the 1,200 years since their inception, they have now grown practically fascistic. They dominate almost every world government from the shadows, and either they directly or indirectly hold a very tight grip over the world, especially the supernatural. It's practically a crime to use magic without their permission. And this creates some interesting dynamics with Althea and her use of magic. And Adobe herself is a young, inexperienced holy knight. In the comics, she is on her first mission, and she is sent to rescue a group of innocent young girls from a demonic cult making use of illegal magical artifacts. So that is where we meet her. And the hook of the story is that she is a highly damaged individual from a broken past. And one of the main themes of the story, both in the comic and in the novel, is how does a person with this sort of past deal with having power? And is it a good idea to let her have it? As a parent, I'm a huge proponent on the effects of like childhood trauma and its effects psychologically, and how it actually ends up shaping a lot of world events.
Wow. So something that stands out to me is just the different tone of each story. So I kind of like you guys to hop in. How did you, what would you say each of your separate projects contributes to the Mythiverse, and how would this kind of appeal to different readers?
I guess with mine, it's just sort of like the different perspectives each of the characters have, like on the supernatural as a whole. Like with Maeve, just because she's young, she's kind of blown away by it all, and it's like everything is so new to her, and she's kind of mesmerized just by the wonder of it all. Also, she just wants to find out more about it. Adobe comes from more of a perspective that is it fair to say it's more utilitarian, Dan?
It's a means to an end for her in more ways than one. I don't want to go into all the ways it's a means to an end because I would end up spoiling it. But yes, that's very fair to say. To her, it's not something that she is, it's something that she uses.
Yeah, and another thing is like at least this was kind of how I interpreted the paladins. They view magic like fire. It's useful, but it's dangerous.
Right, which is why all practitioners of magic are essentially registered through them and controlled heavily through them. That doesn't mean, there aren't outliers that have managed to evade it, but it's very difficult to do so and very risky.
Yeah. Whereas Althea... sorry, Matt.
All right. Well, which is where Althea and the Mythics come into play, where they're hiding their ability to use magic, and with Althea, she's got a familiar spirit who is essentially the one who locks her powers down until they absolutely need to use it. Because it's because they don't want to get caught by paladins.
But yeah, I think more or less like her attitude is just like, and it's kind of true for Mythics in general, I think, that they view magic as it's just another part of nature. It's not good or evil, it just exists, and it's just better to work with it than trying to control it.
What's interesting about that to me is now I'm immediately starting to see the potential for all of these characters and ideas to start interacting. So if Althea is disguising her magic, and if Adobe Kroger is connected to, is it a Templar society for Adobe Kroger?
Yes, it's very much so a Templar society. There are 4 distinct hierarchies within the society, and she is at the very lowest possible that you can be and still be on active duty. So she's unaware of a lot of the higher order politics. She actually discovers that as she goes along, much to her disgust.
Have you guys discussed a little bit how your characters might interact in a crossover event in the future?
Very heavily and extensively.
Excellent.
I don't want to go into too much of it because there's so much exciting plans being laid down here that I just want to make sure that when they arrive, they are a wonderful surprise.
So what's important to underscore here is there's a lot of, like Comicsgate / Saving Comics or Comicsgate adjacent projects. I don't even know if you guys care about that label anymore, but what you guys are offering that's pretty unique is the shared universe aspect, where this can be the start of crossover stories. This can be the start of characters bouncing off each other in unique and interesting ways, which in many ways is kind of like what gave Marvel and DC Comics their start. Was they were these collection of superheroes that were then brought together into having a shared universe and shared adventures with one another.
Absolutely. Like the big deal was when Secret Wars came out, no one had ever tried to do anything that ambitious before. I'm not saying like our scale is the same, but it's approaching it.
Not just Secret Wars, Crisis on Infinite Earths too.
Well, yes, of course. I think Secret Wars just occurred because, hey, we want to sell these toys.
Yeah, Crisis on Infinite Earth though was kind of more of I think DC kind of more did it out of necessity, just because everything had gotten so cluttered. They wanted to condense everything down to make it more neat. Because like they just had too many. They had too many universes.
Duskquill team in the chat says Mythoverse is pretty rad, an expansive multiverse project within the indie scene. Exactly. So I think people are clicking in the chat are clicking with the intrigue of that. Like, it's always interesting to see an independent person have a project, but when you have something like this, the three of you have the opportunity, and you've actually been discussing ways that your characters and your worlds can overlap with one another. I'd like to give you guys a chance to talk about maybe some interesting things to expect. For example, you've all been friends of the Rag Zombie team, I know. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about the inspiration you've gotten from that team?
It's more like in how it's more in like how we market it, and it's let me put it this way: when we get to the Kickstarter part, we're going to try and get this machine running like it's a 24-hour op.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to that end, we're going to build our own community around the shared universe. And we have other plans that will allow us to become slightly more independent of the crowdfunding platforms, such as Kickstarter and or Patreon, further down the line.
Interesting. So that's something that I've heard a lot of people talking about, is they're talking about how exciting it is to have, this opportunity to do just independent funding and use like payment platforms as a supplement to their income. So you're hoping that the Mythoverse can become self-sustaining. Can you speak any more? Can you speak any more to that? Like what kind of options are you exploring?
Well, we're looking at after we launch the initial crowdfunding campaign, which essentially our goals for that campaign cover paying for our creative teams and for the backers and not much else. We want to achieve a sort of sustainable, like inclusive community surrounding this universe, and we're doing our best to make it as easy to consider yourself a part of this community as we can make it, and set up something of a subscription model based around that community.
Are you considering? How are you considering maybe like future additions to the project? Are you just going to like tap people as they do projects you think might fit within the Mythoverse, or are you guys going to keep having conversations about what can kind of be canon in the universe you're creating? Because obviously someone could come up with their own thing that's cool on its own, but maybe their rules of magic in their world wouldn't make any sense in Mythoverse's world.
Yeah, we've actually Matt and I have been in talk with a couple people that we think who have ideas that we think would fit. There was one time I tried. It's as to the latter, like about the only time I encountered that was with my colorist Ginger and her boyfriend Xenolith, with comics, their Project Immortal. And the more they just kept on describing how it was going to work, the more I realized, okay, this is not going to fit. And in the Mythoverse, it's better off if it plays in its own sandbox. But yeah, but more or less, like, we are going to try and tap creators whom either express interest in working in it or we think could work in it. But right now, what we're kind of focused on is like what Changeling, Mythics, and Adobe Kroger are all going to do is essentially be the phase one, which is just laying the foundation.
And hopefully establishing nice, solid rules for the world. So it'll be much easier for creators to determine if their ideas are a good fit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, bringing that up to add to that, Dan, there was like one day, like Matt and I just sat down and we just hashed out basically a whole document, which was rules about how the Mythoverse functions. And it, like, for example, magic, it can be learned by anybody. You don't need to have some kind of, it's not talent. It's not something you're born with. It's a skill that could be learned by anyone. If the only thing is that it takes a certain kind of discipline and mindset to do it, and not many people have it. And another thing is that, like,
it's less about being the chosen one and more about, can you get in the right frame of mind to do.
That's one aspect. Another like rule we came up with was death is final.
That's a good one. I like that. I like that rule for a comic book universe. Finally, death matters. You're not going to undo it one week later.
Yeah. I mean, like, about the closest you could see someone come back from the dead is like either they come back as a vampire or a zombie, but yeah, you are not going to see anything like what Marvel and DC kept abusing and just taking all the tension out of their universe. It's kind of more like Marn, do you remember Valiant from back when Jim Shooter was running it?
No, I actually didn't know anything about Valiant until just like the past year or two.
Okay, like back in the day, I'm pretty sure some of the older comic book nerds remember this. This was that was with the old Valiant universe, like, and then I gotta specify, this was during when Jim Shooter was running it. Death was actually final in that. In other words, if a character died, he was gone for good and he wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
And it's like, they also had a really gorgeous system of introducing new characters too. Like, a new character would premiere in another book, and then he would get his own title.
So that would kind of help build up interest in character. What I like about that is that gives readers a chance to become interested in a character before they get their own story. Because a character could be a good supporting character, but are they protagonist material?
Exactly. I mean, like, that's something we may or may not do, but but it was something I kind of liked about the old Valiant universe. Another rule that Matt and I came up with was that what monsters essentially are is the result of humans trying to control the supernatural. So, like, like how what's the best way I can put it? It's like if I am trying to think of an analogy, but the best I can come up with is like damming a river and giving it no release system.
I'd like to get Matt Trin's perspective on something. So, Matt, you worked in like kind of heavy realistic sci-fi before, with like lots of research into maybe the science of it. So I'm kind of interested in maybe like for you, you might have a unique perspective as someone who kind of had to shift gears from sci-fi into kind of urban fantasy. Could you tell us a little bit about maybe like how you adapted to write a story within this universe?
Well, strangely enough, I didn't have much of a. It didn't feel like I had much of a barrier to cross. It just I went from one mindset to another, and I guess part of it has to do with how grounded in reality the Mythoverse seems to be in comparison to other urban fantasy stories. That probably helped.
I guess would help, like say, Matt, have you gotten into like Hellblazer at all at this point?
Yeah, I've got probably the first 3 volumes of it on my Kindle.
So, how would Mythics compare to that?
I'm gonna say Althea is more of a people person than Constantine. So there is going to be some of the trauma, but the first storyline starts off with her as, in a way that parallels Adobe Kroger. It's going to be when she's a rookie. And this will also be set during a time when she's more optimistic about what's going on. But still has that cunning where she can trick people or creatures by certain means. And
by comparison, Adobe is more of a blunt instrument.
Okay.
Yep.
I like how this could appeal to different tastes. Like I like my Sherlock Holmes, mystery stories, but I also like my, kicking down the door and, fighting a bunch of guys with a big sword. And so you're going to be able to hit kind of different tastes. Even like Marvel Comics in some ways can do that. Like there's this, magical mysteries, Doctor Strange side of the Marvel Universe. There's also like the space side of the Marvel Universe. And one part of it might appeal to like a very different person's taste. So you can speak to like the action adventure stuff and the mystery stuff.
Exactly. I mean, that was kind of the beauty of Marvel and DC in their heyday.
The funny thing is that while a lot of Althea's story, Althea as a character was influenced by Sherlock Holmes, the one thing that you get out of the Adobe Kroger novel is that Adobe is Watson.
Yes, she is very much a Watson. She is the novel takes place in first-person narration, so there's that. And she has a much more cunning rival that she plays off of, who more or less takes on almost inadvertently the Sherlock Holmes role. And she even directly compares herself to Watson in the novel, so it works out great. Next to Althea, Adobe is really just a big dumb ox.
I gotta wonder, in this sort of context, does that make Maeve Nancy Drew?
Yes, it does.
Does she solve the mystery of the missing shoe or anything like that?
Or Detective Boy Conan, since you've got the manga influence.
Oh, shit, I forgot about Detective Conan. I'm like a kid, though.
That's true. Well, there's always like something weird in manga, like someone sneezes and changes gender or changes age or something. that probably wouldn't fit.
Think of a Rama that involves hot water.
Yeah.
Now you're talking. Rumiko Takahashi is one of my idols.
I'm kind of interested in the origin story of the Mythoverse. Like, how did the three of you get together in the first place to start talking about this?
It's kind of interesting. I think we can all trace it back to a moment where Cody of Jack Irons was thrown into DM jail for throwing too many DMs around while he was promoting Jack Irons. So I said, hey, I'll make a replacement just in case you need to chat with someone. So we set up a Slack channel. And I said, whoever wants to join, come join. And Matt and Brett and a friend of ours named Tank were the only people who joined. So we started talking to one another. And we all had our own projects going. And it just sort of organically happened. And our stories didn't really need to change all that much. They just seemed to fit together naturally.
And the short version is it was a happy accident.
Yeah, it's entirely an accident. Entirely an accident.
Wow. Now, but Adobe Kroger existed prior to, and the Changeling and Changeling and Urban Fairytale. These both existed prior to you guys discussing this. So did you have to have like conversations about, well, would something make sense in this story that's established in this story?
For being honest, I think all three existed before we came up with this, but did we discuss about making changes all that much? I think if we did, it was very little.
I mean, basically you asked like, how would Adobe handle this, or how would the Paladins handle this? And I said, well, here's how they would handle it. And that's really the extent of it from where I sat.
In a way, I was having some issues with coming up with reasons why Althea doesn't use magic when he's got access to it. And then the Paladins showed up with Adobe Kroger, so that all worked out for the best.
Yeah, and it's very thematically appropriate that way, because she can't really use magic without risking being discovered, so she has to use her cunning, which is perfect.
Oh my god, that kind of makes me wonder how Changeling slip under the radar, because that is not something I thought of.
Well, for the Changelings, it's part of their like entire nature, right? Like if the Paladins are really good at regulating magic and finding magic, but it doesn't mean there can't be like certain aspects of the world that can escape their notice.
But the only thing I can think of is just because the Fae use glamour so much, it's like even Changelings have glamour placed on them when they're infants, and the
world is a big place, you know.
Yeah, it's like. Plus, I mean, like in Maeve's case, is there really going to be a paladin out looking for supernatural happenings in Aberdeen?
No, they tend to congregate around the high population centers.
Yeah, and if in case anyone doesn't know this, Aberdeen is pretty much smack in the middle of nowhere as far as Washington goes.
You're going to have something pretty big go on.
Yeah,
not that Brett has anything planned of that nature, just so you know.
I don't know. Oh, I don't. I do not. I don't have something that's like supposed to be an homage to a beloved 80s fantasy movie.
No, you would never go that far. Nothing ever happens in Aberdeen.
I'm interested. Go finish. Go ahead.
Oh, nothing bad ever happens when a teenager finds out that she can use magic.
What could go wrong? So I'm interested in when people are going to be able to start supporting this project. So you've discussed in spring using an independent publishing platform, and that's just going to be the launching point, hopefully to maybe like being able to fund it yourselves, doing a subscription service or other means. So, tell us a little bit about what you can about your plans for independent crowdfunding for the Mythiverse.
Well, we kind of decided to go to Kickstarter just because we saw a much higher rate of success with comics that got funded on there.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also got the advantage that because we're already signed to a publisher, Wicked Publishing, that doesn't mean we have to worry about the printing, so we can have a much lower goal to set and don't need as many backers. And that while still giving us room to grow. But I think also what I think is going to entice people about it is that what we can basically sell this Kickstarter on is that it's not just one book, and you are getting 3 books that are separate but happen within the same universe. And not only that, there is going to be an extensive list of options in terms of backer rewards.
So this is a good one to get in on the ground floor on, because not only are you planning like expanding this, building this, three creative people adding stories to a universe, you're also hoping to make this like a great jumping on point for new people.
Exactly.
Precisely.
I know you haven't settled on a hard date, but we can maybe expect this in the next couple of months or so. We might see this coming to Kickstarter.
Yeah, we're just still ironing out the details, but like I think the mostly committed to at this point was late March, early April.
Gotcha. And something that might be of interest to some people in independent comics is Regina Rogowski from Rags, which was it was a hit book. I think what was it? It was the #1 Comic Central digital comic.
It was the book of the year, I believe.
Yeah. So there's going to be a chance to pay homage. You've gotten permission from the creators to pay homage to Regina in your world. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't have permission from Brian and Trent to use. I mean, yeah, I do not have permission from Brian and Trent to pay homage to Regina. I have permission to use her.
But, okay, so that's even bigger. It's more than just like a cameo.
Yes. Let me put it this way: when I am able to get my hands on Regina, full stop, she is going to be a supporting character in Changeling, and she has a close relationship with Maeve.
So what's interesting about that is that's a pretty beloved character. She's got her own like following, like Liz Finnegan's face, so she's got a very distinct, defined look, and there'll be opportunities for her to just like go on adventures within the Mythoverse universe.
Yeah, it's also kind of shows it's also able to show a side of Regina that Brian and Trent were not able to because of the nature of Rags as a book.
Yeah, it's a completely different genre for her, like zombie apocalypse versus mythic fairytale universe.
Yeah, young adult fairytale universe. Yeah, it's like the thing I kind of caught on to Regina is as long as certain key character traits are present, she can pretty much work anywhere. She's kind of a Swiss Army knife when it comes to being a character.
Yeah, she's very versatile and useful, and she's kind of a broken character emotionally. So there's a lot of opportunity to, give her stories that have emotional impact, and a story where you need someone to like, find the guns, put them together, kick some zombie butts, all that kind of great stuff. Well, you do have zombies in your universe, so that's just perfect.
If zombies can happen, but I don't know. I mean, like, I don't see us making a zombie apocalypse happen. Although I did sort of play with the idea of having Maeve, her friends, and Regina. I'll just say this much. There's one future story I have. Regina takes Maeve and her friends up to what was supposed to be something like a pony like a My Little Pony convention, but because it's Regina, she bought the passes while she was drunk and ended up taking them to what turns out to be a furry convention. And the only reason they're not going back is because she's like, I booked the hotel. It's non-refundable. We're staying, but we're just gonna not leave the hotel room. And from then on, it basically turns into Shaun of the Dead.
Okay, that needs its own like massive crowdfunding campaign. That's a great premise.
Oh yeah, it's there are several future stories that I am looking forward to. In fact, like if people were paying attention to my Twitter last night, they caught a glimpse of one I have planned. So that one, people, I guarantee they are not ready for.
That might be worth underscoring is I've included you guys' Twitter bios in the description of this video. So one of the best ways to keep up with what you're up to is to follow you on Twitter, right? Is that like your main way of communicating with your followers?
At present, yes.
Yep.
Pretty much. It's like in case anyone wants to know, I just RT'd that particular tweet right now, so
go check out Brett1106 on Twitter for some sneak peeks of what's coming.
I like it.
All right, so I'd like to give you guys a chance to you've had an opportunity to tell us a little bit about the basic themes of each universe. I'd kind of like for maybe each of you to talk a little bit about like what personally made you storytellers. Maybe get into like why create stories in the first place, and why is that important to each of you?
Well, speaking for myself, I've wanted to be a storyteller ever since I was a child, and I read The Hobbit. I was just absolutely fascinated by A, the characters, B, the adventure, and C, the themes of heroism. Like the world's smallest creature manages to outwit the world's most powerful creature, and discover his weak spot so that he can be destroyed. I mean, I absolutely love that as a theme. So Bilbo and all the themes in that book have always been a huge influence on me. And I found that stories and art in general is the most effective way to make profound truths stick in people's heads. So I see that as it's a fairly noble calling, and it can be abused, as we've seen often in these past couple of years in the comic book industry. So I see this as an opportunity to kind of rebalance that.
Excellent. What about what about for you, Matt? What's kind of like what's made you a storyteller?
Well, I said it last night when it came about after the show Babylon 5 ended its run, and for some reason it stuck with me of all the character stories and all that. So it made me want to write my own stories. And being a writer was something that was there because originally when I was a kid, it was because for a creative writing assignment, I had finally gotten a better grade than my friend who always got A's. So that was something that I picked up on. So I have the ability to tell stories. And hopefully they're stories that people will enjoy.
Lovely. What about for you, Brett?
I guess in my case, part of it's the Irish in me. Like we have a long history of being bards and poets and storytellers. So it's just kind of like in the blood. But I think that. But if I'm being honest, what sort of ignited my passion in comics was in my high school years when I was just digging through the comics and graphic novels at my high school library, and I found Turns, and then I just saw because at that point I was like, I don't want to read shit about superheroes. It's just like not because I thought it was lame, just because I wanted something different at that point. At that point, it's just like I had spent most of my childhood reading Spider-Man comics. Like when I was a kid, like my uncle was like sending my brother and me like a box of Spider-Man comics like almost every other month, and like I ate them up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just, but after a while, you just sort of like you spend enough time with one thing, you get sick, you get bored of it, and you just want something different. And like I was kind of, like I said, I was into anime and manga at that point, but like Sandman was something that was kind of just sort of ignited. That kind of ignited that passion in me, and it's just I realized, okay, it doesn't have to be just doesn't just have to be cape books. You can do other things with this. And I tried making my own comics. Kind of had a couple failure to launches. Like the biggest problem the biggest thing I had to get used to was the fact that I just was not good enough to draw. So I tried writing, which was something I found that I actually was pretty good at. But after a while, just like I think for like a period of like, what was it, like 4 or 5 years? I forget how long it was, but for a while I just kind of wasn't making anything. I just sort of thought to myself, okay, maybe this is just not meant to be, and I'll live with it. And then Comicsgate happened, and I decided, you know what, why not just give it one more shot? It's not like I got anything to lose.
Yeah. It is interesting how kind of like these cultural conversations can bring people out of the woodwork. Like I was just working as like I was just like working as a tutor and kind of like feeling sad, wondering if I'd wasted my life in art school. And then Comicsgate happens, and I'm interested again, and I finally come back to to comic books and start reading comic books again. And when you meet people who are passionate and creative, it kind of like prompts you to light that fire.
In fact, the moment I knew I just did not, the point I knew the moment I knew I'd hit the point of no return was when Brian gave me a plug. And then I realized, okay, now I actually have to follow through on this. Because if he believed in me enough to promote me, I've got to make good on it, because otherwise I'm betraying him.
Light that fire.
Yep.
Right under your seat. Get it toasty.
Pretty much.
This is why you always try to encourage and support up-and-coming artists. You never know what you may be responsible for helping to create.
Exactly.
Yep.
I'd like to.
Which is why we're also always out there supporting artists who have no idea what they're doing right now.
Yeah, in fact, like one thing that I think is going to really sell people on our Kickstarter, if I can grab the floor for a bit. Let me pull this up. I have the file on hand. Actually, this one is better. Folder needs to open faster. There we go. So one thing that we decided to sell our Kickstarter with was a special variant cover. Marm, can you make sure my screen is centered on my screen?
Absolutely. I'm gonna do present to everyone.
All right, here we go. So this was a triptych variant series we had done by an artist who's a mutual friend of ours named Moonlight Shadow.
Yeah.
Oh, very talented. Available for commission work. Only snag is she can only accept payment through Western Union because apparently her country doesn't like PayPal.
Huh.
Yeah. But yeah. Well, the idea sort of came to us that was to do something that was kind of similar to Jim Lee's X-Men #1. And we decided to do something like that, where you have like you can see like the 3 different covers have a different style of them, but there is sort of a theme kind of tying them together. And we are going to be offering this as like at the high end of the tiers. And I think that is going to draw a lot of people in because you are not going to be able to get these variants anywhere else.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing now.
Now, will Wicked Publishing print the actual books?
Yes, they will.
Yep.
What's it like working with Wicked Publishing? For people who I've read a few books from Wicked Publishing, but do they call you? Do you call them? How do you get in touch with them to start printing books with them?
All contact thus far has been over social media, DMs. I've spoken with them on the phone a couple of times, but they're accessible, they're friendly, and they're all professional. Great guys.
I think it still got me centered, Marn, by the way.
Oh, I just undid that. Yeah, so we should be back to normal. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. But yeah, more or less seconding what Dan said. Like these are guys who are passionate about the business. They support their creators. Like we saw what they did for Cody with Jack Irons. I honestly cannot recommend them enough, especially considering they were willing to take a shot on all 3 of us. And honestly, if we want to stick by them so that we can make them a player in the indie comic scene, and I think anyone would be remiss to not get in on this.
That was what attracted me to the company, not only working with Matt and Brett, but the ability to get in on the ground floor and build something up. And these 2 guys are creators themselves. I mean, they have their own books that they publish, and they're very passionate about it. They're storytellers, they're creative, and they understand the drive to create. So that's one of the reasons I was very eager to join in.
And if that doesn't sell you on it, we'll go with what I've always said. We've got every person who's worked with diversity in comics working for us except John Malin.
Okay, and maybe he'll jump on the train late too. You never know.
We'll see. When we're the cool kids, he'll jump on.
Yeah.
Like Malin's doing his own thing.
Right. I mean, he went right from Jawbreakers to Graveyard Shift, and now he's going to do his tank heist thing. He's a busy man.
Yeah, yeah. You cannot knock him for his work ethic. That's for certain.
No,
Definitely
absolutely not. Definitely not.
Could you guys talk about your artists a little bit and their styles? Because I'm always interested in that.
And what's to go first?
I'll go first, I guess. My artist is a gentleman by the name of Leandro Panganaban, and he is a Filipino. I bumped into him online and commissioned a couple of pieces from him. I was in the stage where I was shopping for artists for this project, and I had dealt with a number of extremely talented, like god-tier artists. And Leandro was the one who was the most prompt, the most professional, the most friendly, and the most responsive. So fortunately, I ended up with him. I ended up commissioning several pinups from him before he was free to tackle this project. But ever since he has been free, he's been a machine. I mean, I already have like the first 11 pages either inked or laid out. And I couldn't have asked for a better artist. He is the only problem is that he's in the Philippines, so there's a gigantic time difference. So I really have to time my interactions with him just right, or I lose a whole day.
Oh, wow.
Other than that, I couldn't ask for a better artist.
I love that the social media is giving you the opportunity to like find artists in the Philippines and get them on these comic projects. Because when would I ever get to read, see that artist's work,
Absolutely not. I wouldn't have even known he existed. Like 30 years ago, this would have been impossible.
Yeah, it's magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you've worked with a few artists before. Are you going to have a different artist for Mythics, or will it be similar artists you've worked with in the past?
Well, Beth Varney is the one who I commissioned back in 2015, 2016 to do the first 5 pages for Pitch Timmons Comics, which obviously didn't go anywhere. But the thing I have to say about her is that I've always been a fan of her since reading The Tainted on the Duck webcomics, where she has improved in leaps and bounds. But I've seen the newer stuff that she's going to be doing for Mythics. And let me tell you something, that what you've seen right now, it'll blow you away with how much different, how much better she's gotten over in the past 3 years.
I love watching an artist develop. It's like you're watching kind of like the history of their style, come together before your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and I will second what Matt said. I've seen the layouts for her redraw of the first couple pages of Mythics, and yeah, night and day difference.
Yeah,
Brett, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because that leaves me. So yeah, with me, I've got what I have is Victor Campon, a artist from Mexico, and doing the pencils and inks, and now Victor was not the first person I shopped around for when I was looking for artists for Changeling. There was someone else who I went to who is now doing art for another indie book called Tom and Artie. But at the time when she had left, she had a job opportunity come up that she just couldn't pass up. I couldn't hold it against her, and I just said, well, hey, take care of yourself and thanks for everything you did. And so I had to go looking for a new artist, and Twitter Mutual recommended me Victor. I chatted with him, and I took a look at his art, and he had that clear anime manga style that I wanted, and which I honestly think has worked out a lot better, especially considering that if anyone has seen any of the pages that I've posted to Twitter, you can definitely see that Victor's line art, it's got movement, it's got energy, it's got expressiveness, which is very important. He knows that he's very good at characterization, got a very good sense of storytelling, because there have been a couple times he went off script and it actually improved the book a little bit. But I knew, like I said, the book was going to live and die by its aesthetics, and I needed a colorist that could nail the atmosphere I wanted for it, and Ginger offered. And I basically took a chance with her. And lo and behold, their two styles meshed very well. Well, because once Ginger threw her colors into the book, it's just like the line art just popped. It just came to life. life. Like it just got like 10 times better. And not only that, like Ginger was even able to fill in some of the gaps that Victor left, because like a thing with the cover that I posted, like that whole background that's supposed to be Maeve's bedroom, Victor didn't draw any of that in. That was all Ginger.
Have you considered putting out what is it, like character reference sheets for all the main characters so people can start doing fan art of Mythoverse characters?
I think I have several times. I might just do it again just today, just because why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Like I said, the thing I liked about it, just because like I felt like the reason why Victor's and Ginger's styles worked so well was and I think this was something that a mutual friend of ours, Lenny, Leonor on Twitter, or just in case anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, like the thing she said about it was that had it been done in any other style, it probably would come off a bit more depressing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what that whole anime manga style gives it is a sense of playfulness and fun, and it's just like, and it's something which I kind of want the book to have. I want it to have that sort of tone. Like it's going to have its dark moments, but overall, this is going to be a much more lighthearted affair than Adobe Kroger or Mythics. But then again, like how else could it not be?
And that's good because it balances out the available, audiences and appeal for the universe.
Yeah, I mean, like, let me put it. I mean, come on, I mean, like Adobe and Althea pretty much they bring enough adult cynicism into the universe. We need a little more youthful optimism.
Exactly. It's one of the things that'll make Changeling the most unique between the two. It'll stand out better than ours, I think, because of that youthful positivity.
Yeah, well, it's just...
I mean, our other books won't be without their positivity, but Althea and Adobe have had a pretty rocky life, so they do have to deal with that reality. But yeah, to Matt's point, absolutely. Changeling will definitely be the unique title among our 3 titles because of the fact that it appeals to such a broader audience.
Yeah, but I still also kind of agree with Lenny that just because because if it had been done in a more realistic style, it would come off a bit more dour and depressing. But not only that, I think the anime manga is just really sort of like it reminds me. It really reminds me of anime and manga I was into when I was Maeve's age, and in fact, like a lot of writing this book is me just revisiting my teenage years. And I'm not lying when I say that parts of my own experiences did end up in Maeve. But let me make one thing perfectly clear: she is not meant to be an avatar for myself. She is her own separate person. She has her own opinions about things. She does not exist to be an autobiography for myself, because my life story is really not that interesting.
I'll have to second that. Adobe is like a reflection of my values, not really myself, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because that was a problem like I had with a lot of like modern Marvel characters, is they felt like they were supposed to be. It's like the writer wanted life story, but then they realized, wait, my life story is really, really boring. But I still want to tell it because I am so woke and shit. But what do I do? Oh, wait, I'll just use this beloved character and use them to basically tell my life story.
In contrast to creating your own thing and investing part of yourself in the character. Yeah.
I believe Zach recently referred to it as wiping your nose with characters you didn't create.
Ooh.
That's
a nice way of putting it.
I got the name wrong. I was thinking of Cena Grace.
That sounds right. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was tragic.
But from what I've heard, he's been getting better, so it could have been a whole getting used to writing comic scripts.
Yeah, but still, it felt like he was using Iceman as just as a vehicle to work out work out a lot of his issues.
Yeah, which all I have to say about the comparison between Althea and myself is that if you think I'm trying to write Althea as myself, I might have some bigger issues other than money. That's all I have to say.
But yeah, I think one thing that you cannot take away from any of our books, though, is that they all look good. Like,
yeah, they look damn good. I am very proud of our artistic team. They've really knocked it out of the park. Every time I see a new page turned in from Victor and Ginger and Bethy and Leandro, it's just wow. I'm so proud of these guys, and I cannot wait to show the world their work.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, especially if the kinds of stories we're going to be telling.
not only that, I think what also goes without saying is that we tapped our teams who have a sense of aesthetics that really fit the books. Because like I don't know how many people know this, but aesthetics really count for a lot in comics. Because like you can't just plug any artist into any book. But sadly,
You have to think about the emotion of the. You have to think of the emotion of the story. Like you talked about this earlier, that an artist could make a depressing story seem more hopeful based on an appealing drawing style. Like a dark and dreary drawing style would add to kind of like the overbearing, sad feeling. But you can kind of soften the blow a bit based on if you draw something maybe more optimistically.
yeah, pretty much. It's like yeah, pretty much. I mean, like some of Osamu Tezuka's mangas could get a little bit on the dark side once you really stop and think about them. But just his art style just really kind of helped create this emotional contrast. And so like you could, I mean, because when you get, I mean, like I don't know how many people have actually read the original Astro Boy manga, but like it's not a happy story for a lot of it.
Right. Tetsuka, he liked tragedy, man. Ouch. You're making my heart hurt already.
Yeah. He was also really good at disguising it though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not only that, I mean like it just but I mean like as a counterpoint, like you've also got like say a Berserk, which it would not work if it did not have that level of detail to it.
Yeah.
Like it's just, and like I said, like a comic can live and die by its aesthetics, so it's important that you tap the right artist with the right sense of aesthetics to work within, and not just that an artist with a good sense of storytelling. Because like Victor's not the only one who's gone off script. I think like Leandro did too with Adobe.
Yeah, I think some of the most interesting panels visually were the ones where he totally disregarded my direction. And he said, yeah, it looks better this way.
Trust your artist.
Yeah, it got to the point where I said, look, I'm just going to tell you what the characters are saying. And if I give you any kind of direction, it's because I want to give you a baseline. But disregard it if you feel it will work better some other way. And he's taken those instructions and run with it. And the book will be all the better for it.
Yeah, I've more or less kept a more hands-off approach with Victor and Ginger. I just tell them, okay, this is how I see this. I just give them like a basic outline of how I want a panel to play out, but I more or less just leave it at Victor's hands to interpret. Harper and Ginger just does her best to sort of add in the more finer details. And honestly, it does work a lot better. It just gives them really makes them feel like they can really communicates to them that I have faith in their own abilities to nail my vision down, and for the most part they do. And in some ways, like I said, they even find ways to improve on it. And it's.
I think that last part cut out, Brett.
I said in some ways they find ways to improve on it, and it's like when you've got that kind of synergy going.
Are you with us, Brett?
What?
I don't think you can hear you.
Can't hear me.
I can hear you, but someone going on?
Yeah, I can hear you, Brett. I'm not sure if Marm can, though.
For me? Okay, wait. Go ahead and talk, Matt.
So, are we having technical difficulties?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Just talk about what's like working with Beth.
Okay, well, working with Beth, like I said, I was a fan of her work before working with her, so it's kind of more like a. Guess I can't exactly explain how it feels, but I am pretty happy about it. She brings a lot of talent to the table. Did I just hear a whistle?
I don't think so. But it's just like, yeah, I mean,
But yeah, you can see Beth's work in my icon.
Do you have any more of Beth's work on your Twitter?
Let me actually find those 2 pictures she did spontaneously of Althea and Adobe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Give me a second. I'm gonna track those down and link them.
oh
Okay,
yeah,
and
those
I'll-
are great. You know,
And I'll present to everyone when you get it.
one thing I like about Beth is that she's not afraid to draw beautiful women. Like,
Especially when it comes to at the moment.
Yeah.
But see, I also have a book that was drawn by her for Kickstarter, and I think there's very little that she'll say no to, but she will. I have no doubt that she will say no to a lot of the more disturbing aspects of storytelling or society, even.
I dropped a link to the tweet that contains both images in the chat there.
Martin,
All right.
you're gonna want to screen share that.
Yep, I can do that. Here we go.
Everyone is gonna love this.
All right, I'm going to present to everyone here. Let's see here.
To set this up, this was a very spontaneous thing that occurred over the space of an hour or 2.
I think so. It was a couple hours, definitely.
Here we go. I once heard that a child with wealthy parents have 2 paths ahead of them. Either they become spoiled brats whom expect the world to bow to them, or they become incredibly cynical. I wonder if it's obvious which one I became. Althea Fletcher, high school years.
She was a Catholic schoolgirl.
Yeah.
Keep going down.
All right. Mythics with art by Beth Varney, written by myself. The story is about a woman whose job is to keep the balance between the mortal world and the other world of the supernatural, often compelled to Hellblazer.
You're gonna want to find the one with Adobe in it. That's the one.
All right.
Yeah, it's after the plugs, directly below there.
Okay, I just got to get out of here. Oh, Adobe Kroger with Leandro NR doing the artwork. Eric Weathers, he shows up a lot. And Molly Bean's doing the writing.
I wasn't kidding. I wasn't kidding when I said we snatched up everyone that worked with DNC except John Malin. Like even Wicked Publishing even has Ebi Canales doing his own book.
Yeah, and Brett Smith will be doing the colors for the cover.
Yeah.
Which I'm very excited about. He's working on it right now.
Yeah, Brett. Yeah, Brett is a great guy.
Yeah.
I'm hoping my laptop hasn't frozen. Oh no, panic. Here we go. I want to look at this one. Oh.
Yeah, he has an incredible eye for detail.
Yeah. Oh, and such great black and white. Wow.
Yeah, that's what attracted me to his style because that was the aesthetic I was going for. I wanted a sort of manga / Sin City-esque, heavy on the black and white. And there's Adobe responding to Althea. It's obvious what the F happened to me.
Oh. In high school.
Both Adobe and Althea, it's canon. They were both they were both Catholic schoolgirls. They did not go to the same school though.
No,
Okay.
they did not. They did not. But yes, they both went to Catholic school, and that's roughly how seriously she took the uniform too.
Yeah, Maeve was a public school kid, unfortunately.
Yeah, I like you got to get that sweatshirt available as a product for the
Dan's
campaign
wife,
or something.
Dan's wife is working on a prototype.
All right.
Yes, it will be available in some form, either as a single for a backer that's very lucky, or in a merch store. We're working on it.
All right.
I think if it goes to a merch store, it's going to have to be an on-demand item, just because we don't have any means of mass producing it.
Have you considered like any of the like mass-produced online stores like Redbubble or TeePublic or any of those?
Well, the thing about Maeve's hoodie is that it's not just a simple hoodie. It has ears and a face and a nose and on the hood.
Yeah.
Scroll up, Marm. You'll see the cover.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. Okay, so that's a bit more specialty.
Yeah, like it has. You got to do it. You see, it's like that. I mean, that's a big thing that helps her stand out from the crowd, for one. So.
Oh yeah, there's Nerd Wonder in the background. I always love seeing that.
she's a plushie in Maeve's bedroom.
Anything under this? All right. They're all talking about their school experiences.
Right. There will be a number of fun Easter eggs on all 3 of our books.
Excellent. Well, let's take a little bit more. I want to take a tiny bit more look at the Changeling's art style.
Check out that first panel, especially. You have
up here.
Yeah. You notice how like the sun is low and it casts all this dramatic lighting, and just a fantastic job on that.
Right. Even lighting up her back. Yeah.
Exactly. Like Brett often says, Victor's line work is great, but when Ginger gets her hands on it, it really comes to life.
Yeah.
She's able to fill in so many details, and just really, it's just very fortunate that they both have styles that gel so well together. And it's even more fortunate because I took a chance on her.
Well, it was a good chance. Check out the top 4 panels here.
Oh, let me go back. Yeah.
Yeah, you notice how Maeve is very gradually metamorphosizing into her banshee form. Her hair is gradually becoming white. That's a pretty subtle thing, but as each panel progresses, you see her hair is getting whiter and whiter until on panel number 5, it's completely chalk white.
Yeah.
Yep. She did a fantastic job on that.
Yeah.
So one after that. Okay, then that's the last page for that.
Yeah, that's all the color pages she's finished right now. She's working on I handed her another one to work on. Right now, Ginger can't work as fast as she would like to, just because she has to share her boyfriend and always have access to it. Although that is going to be solving itself pretty soon.
All right, good. So what's nice about this is you're giving like some independent artists a chance to like build up their careers.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. To that point, when I first began sharing Leandro's completed inked work, Brett Smith was the one who actually approached me and requested the ability to collaborate with Leandro. And I said, yeah, sure. Anything, because that's a huge opportunity for him, because he's an up-and-coming guy himself. And just having the contact of someone with this strong a business acumen and this many contacts in the industry would be a huge boon for his career.
It was too good of an opportunity to pass up.
Yeah, I mean, Brett does not come cheap, but he's absolutely worth it. He's more than just a colorist.
Yeah. That's pretty much. And having him just is gonna be good for our Kickstarter, just because like that also lends a little bit of legitimacy. It's not just just because he's got credibility within the industry and within the wider comics community on Twitter. And so that gives our project a little bit of clout.
Yeah, and Brian doesn't hurt either.
Brian does. Yeah, having Brian. Yes, also having Brian's endorsement is a big boon.
For those who don't know, Brian is the lead writer for Rag Zombie, right?
I think he puts it as it's a completely collaborative effort between him and Trent.
Gotcha. they're an artist-writer relationship that's a bit more like they're all putting in input into what happens.
Brian and Chuck both write it. Luigi does the art.
Gotcha. All right. Shoot, I can't believe I missed that. Dang it. I gotta reread Rags and look at the credits more carefully.
Yeah. In fact, actually, I actually reached out to Luigi about possibly doing a poster for the Kickstarter. I haven't heard back from him yet, though.
No. Well, at least you gave Brian credit as a writer. Some places don't do that.
Yeah, he's just credited as some guy, and for some reason, Trent's the one who gets that's the billing.
Shoot. I'd like to give you guys like an opportunity to kind of like present your like closing pitch on the Mythoverse and wrap it up. So why is the Mythoverse exciting? Why are the three of you excited for it? And maybe into the addition to the three artists we saw today, like what kinds of exciting things can we expect from the Mythoverse in the future?
Well, you should get in on this just because we are building up a brand new universe, and we are doing it at a up and coming indie publisher that is poised to go places. Because, like I said, we've got Jack Irons, which has been a smash hit within the indie comics community. And Cody is working on building a larger universe off from that. And we've also got E by Canales, who's, like I said, if you liked Iron Sights, then you're probably gonna like Decimators for the art alone. And we're hopefully adding one more feather into the cap with the Mythoverse.
Absolutely. It's a universe that has a little of something for everyone. It's got young adult fantasy humor-driven drama. It's got character-driven paranormal action. And it's got mystery and intrigue. It's got a little of something for everyone.
Yeah.
Yep. And all I gotta say is that what's going to happen with the crossovers will be they'll have stories that'll make them a lot more eventful than your typical Marvel DC crossover, especially with Marvel, where it seems like a superhero cannot go anywhere without running into another one in their own title.
Yeah, not just that, we're also not going to be churning them out year after year like Marvel does.
Yeah.
Yeah, like our crossovers will further the world that is portrayed by the universe. It'll develop each character in a meaningful and long-lasting and permanent way. And on top of all of this, I mean, what you're getting here is a universe created by three people who really are doing it because they love it. Like, we're not clock punchers. None of us do this for a living. This is something that we want to do. Like, this is our 5 to 9 that our 9 to 5 pays for. And you're going to get all that passion and all that energy that comes out of that.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for it. A crossover that the first story arc of Mythics will be something of a mini type of thing where I have Althea protecting a Changeling baby, and you have paladins trying to figure out what caused a murder which led to the Changeling baby placed under Althea's care.
And what I like most about that story is, without spoiling anything, is it really does establish Althea as a character that you want to get behind. I mean, I've read it, and it's a really strong story for her as a character. And it's kind of the glue that'll pin all of the different properties together.
In fact, if I can build off that, Dan, it's like you are not going to get at books out of the Mythoverse where character motivations are fudged with just for the sake of a plot. No, these are the plots are in service to the character's actions. I mean, like, I've said it myself. Like, this is how writing Changeling feels to me now. I don't feel like I'm writing the story. I feel like I'm just recording in things that just happen to Maeve and things she does. Because
that's another excellent point. Our stories are primarily character driven rather than event driven. That was something we kind of decided on early on. Like, things happen, but it's really things happen as a result of what the character does, not the other way around.
Gotcha.
I
Which
think
is
that's what really makes the Mythoverse work well together when you put them all together.
I love it. Character-driven stories with like important themes about like growing up for Changeling and like dealing with past trauma. What are you guys crazy? Marvel says you can't do that.
Well, there's a reason why they're failing.
Yep. So I'm really excited for this. I noticed John Dillard gave me the system in our live chat earlier, and I discussed this idea with him. So I kind of want to discuss this idea with you. We talked about having, since he's doing a collaborative project, we talked about having some artists on and some writers to do like a celebration stream / like drawing challenge. All three of you are writers, but I think it'd be fun to have some artists we know, kind of like like our mutual contacts on, maybe try to draw some of the characters and celebrate either like early on during your campaign, well, especially early on to kind of build momentum for it, but anytime during your funding campaign that's coming. I think it'd be a blast to have for us to invite some artists on, draw some characters, and I don't know, make a drinking game, please drink responsibly out of it or something like that. Would you guys be interested in joining that in the future?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
The only issue is Leandro isn't comfortable with English as we are. So as long as he doesn't have to talk, he might be up for it.
I completely understand. Yeah.
I'm not certain if Beth will be able to join. She doesn't really like going on streams.
Okay.
Getting Ginger going to be difficult just because of her sleep schedule and Victor's work schedule. So yeah, I can't. I won't. Let me put it this way. I will say never say never.
Okay. Float the idea. We'll see if we can accommodate because it'd be a blast to have the artists for the projects on. If we can, I'll do anything I can to accommodate them. Also, we could also, like, if one or any of them can't be on, we could also like broaden it out to, I don't know. I'll chat with Your Nerd Wonder. Maybe we could get our boy John Dillard on. But I think it'd be a blast for like. Maybe I may even like put the spot on you guys as the writers, and I'll get you to draw your characters.
I can draw.
I'm a cartoonist. I'm not
right.
I'm not on Leandro's level, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm the definition of okay.
I hope yours.
Sorry, Matt. What was that?
I hope you guys like stick figures.
I love stick figures. They're my favorite thing ever. they're one of the most famous webcomics ever, like XKCD. That's like all stick figures.
I always make that point to people who say they can't draw. It's like, what can you write?
Yeah, Cyanide and Happiness made a whole business out of nothing but stick figures, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they could turn into memes too.
So definitely reach out to your artists. Anything I can do to accommodate them, like different time zones and things like that. Well, I'll try to plan that out on my end, and we will celebrate when the Mythoverse is live and people can start jumping on.
I will absolutely reach out.
Wonderful.
That'd be awesome.
All right. I'd like to give each of you a chance to like just say thank you to the audience, remind them again like who you are and what your project is, and give some people something to leave with before we go.
Okay, so I'll start off with, if people want to follow me, my Twitter is Brett1106. Thanks, and keeping updates on what's going on with the Changeling side of the Mythoverse is the best way. But you can also follow all of my artists, Victor and Ginger. Victor is at VCampin, and Ginger is that crafty foxy. You can have them. You can find them in my bio. They're linked. And not only that, if you follow me, you should be able to find either Matt or Dan, because as we more or less promote each other on Twitter.
Matt, do you want to say anything to leave people with? Just maybe like remind people who might have joined the chat late, like who you are and what your project is.
My name is Matt Trin. You can follow me at Matt Trin on Twitter, and my project is Mythics, a character story about a woman named Althea Fletcher as she does her job with her familiar spirit Gelatin to maintain balance between our world and the world of the supernatural.
Damn, I forgot my pitch. I just realized.
Go ahead, pitch.
Changeling and Urban Fairy Tale is a young adult comic in the vein of anime and manga like Bleach and Fully Cooley with a little bit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Sabrina the Teenage Witch mixed in.
Okay, and I'm Dan. You can reach me over at Molly_Beans on Twitter. I also put out a twice weekly webcomic about a young software engineer called Molly Beans, hence the name. And you can see that over at mollybeans.com. My part in the Mythoverse is Adobe Kroger Dame Comamnder. The artist is Leandro Panganaban. You can reach him on Twitter at LeandroNR. And it's being lettered by Eric Weathers. He's Eric_Weathers. Great guy. And like I said, like Brett said, we cross-promote each other a lot. So follow all three of us, and you'll probably get updates about each project.
Wunderbar. Well, I want to thank all three of you for coming on the show. I'm so happy you found each other through the magic of the internet and found some great artists. And I am eager to see more of the Mythoverse in future. So thank all three of you. Thanks to the chat for joining us. I've in the description of this video, I've put the usernames for all three of my guests on Twitter. I'll try to update it with the artists as well to get some promotion for the lovely artists we've talked about today. And we will look forward to having you three on again for the Mythoverse whenever you're doing your fundraising campaign.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. It was a genuine pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. You guys are great guys.
Follow up, man.
Did I cut anyone off?
I don't think so.
All right. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and looking forward to next time. Thanks everybody for joining us.
For having us on.
Bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Later.